recording right there as well. So coming down here in 3, 2, and 1. Well, Steve, welcome. Mayor's Monday here at WSAU, WSAU.com. I don't know that I've had the chance to actually sit down and chat with you. Of course, ideally we would be in the same room. You are in Marshfield. I obviously am coming to you live from Target Field in Minneapolis. So what we first like to say welcome, and I guess first off, just take the temperature in the room down there in Marshfield. You've had a lot of upheaval. You've had some controversy. I know there's some certain things that you aren't going to be able to talk about legally, complaints, things like that are still being worked out. But first off, how is the group holding together right now in Marshfield?
Well, I can probably talk a lot about most of it, Mike, but as far as the temperature here, I mean, it's been a tense last few months. I mean, if you picture a city our size, 20,000 people in central Wisconsin going through what turned out to be the removal of both a police chief and a mayor in the same month, I mean, that's almost historic at that point. And, it's brought a lot of angst, a lot of questions, and we've had a lot of public input from people wondering what's going on around here. It's also challenging because I know that there's the business community. I've had a couple of emails from people saying, this is a difficult climate. I hope you guys are working on getting us, back on track, because we're trying to sell the community as a place to bring your people and live here and make this your home and grow here in Marshfield. So we want to have that positive climate going. And we're working toward that. I think we're coming out the other end. But we have been through a few things. Chief Rick Ramsey was left on a voluntary termination agreement back in early March, before there was a hearing on some concerns about his employment. The mayor was removed by a vote of the council a couple of weeks later. And those things are still continuing to be issues we're working through. In fact, right now we have a complaint against 2 members of our Fire and Police Commission. And we actually have a request for an investigation of 7 of our 10 council members that I can't really talk much about because I really don't know much about. It was sent to law enforcement. It's been farmed out to another agency. So, we're still rocky here in terms of getting through some of these issues and getting to the end of the tunnel.
So then I guess as much as you can, let us know what is going on with the Police and Fire Commission. I know there's, like you said, the investigation into 2 of the members. What could this lead to, and how many details of the investigation can you talk about at this point?
Well, I was the one who the complaints were delivered to, and both of them were asking for removal of those individuals. And we have a 5-member Police and Fire Commission, so 2 of the 5 members, that's pretty significant. One of them, stepped aside and was replaced last night by our council president as we picked a new member, and so that person's no longer there. In fact, one other member of the commission stepped aside voluntarily during her term. So we do have 2 new members that were appointed on the 20th last night. But this is a challenging time because as we walk through that, and there's still a pending request for removal of one of the members, and we have this daunting task of picking a new police chief. So think about that. In the midst of organizational upheaval in terms of that commission's makeup, you're being asked to do one of the biggest things that you'll ever do as a member of the PFC, and that's choose one of the public safety department heads. And so that's a process that they really started in earnest at their last meeting about 10 days ago or so. And they'll be working through the process of trying to find a new chief.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that process is going to be a slow one. You're not exactly going to rush into it. At least last I understood, you still don't know even if you'll go through, say, a search committee or a search firm, or if you'll go primarily internally in that process. So this is something that not only in that upheaval, but you're also not rushing this process as well.
No, you're right, Mike. And people might be wondering why. Why are we taking slower steps? Well, Pat Zepps has been our acting police chief since last August, and he's doing a wonderful job of keeping the troops moving forward and doing what they need to do. And so, calm waters for a little while after what we just went through the last few months isn't necessarily the worst thing that we can do. The other thing you're going to see is probably a longer process than we might sometimes. Police and fire is one of those things where they work really hard, and rightfully so, to raise leaders from within. They're trying to grow people. They have conferences, seminars, workshops, training exercises. The goal is to bring people up through the ranks and prepare them for that moment when they can be somebody like a chief. And we may well have internal candidates, and one may be selected for this position, but I think you're going to see a pretty good external push looking for other candidates outside of the city of Marshfield who have qualifications, experience, backgrounds that we want to consider for this very important position. So it may look a little bit slow walked to people, but that's in some ways that's almost intentional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. And it's a hire that you definitely do not want to get wrong, especially in today's climate. And you and I were just talking a little bit off the air. You and I both have roots in the state of Minnesota. We know what the city of Minneapolis went through. By the time this airs, it'll be last week, but yesterday. So, I mean, really, it's fresh in our minds right now as we're recording. If you have that culture and that culture gets questioned, it's something that can lead to uh, a whole lot of unrest, even more unrest than you're seeing right now.
Oh, I agree. I agree, Mike. Really, I like to think about my position as being important to city administrator, and I guess it is. I mean, I'm the administrative chief officer, if you will, but the police chief and the fire chief, those positions, especially maybe the police chief, is so critical, especially in the environment we're in right now. If you look at what's happened in the past 2 years nationally with unrest and the way people look at police, people look at police very differently right now than they did in the past. They're a little bit more scrutinizing in terms of what goes on around them, and that's understandable. But it means that the head of that department is so critical.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And, all this comes together, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier. I'm going to ask you about it again now. The climates there in Marshfield, you said you've been talking with some business leaders who are trying to sell this city as a growing medical hub, a growing place to bring employees to. And I would guess it doesn't take much of a Google search right now to find out what's gone on in the city of Marshfield in the last few months. So, as you said, kind of changing the climate and calming the waters in the city right now. It's not just important for the residents that are there, but for lack of a better term, it's important for your PR as well.
Well, it really is, Mike. And you think about the mayor, for example. I mean, Bob McManus was mayor for 3 years, and he did some really good things. I mean, he was a strong leader, and he was part of many accomplishments that occurred here in the city during that time. And that's how a lot of people know him. So, there may be people who never learn what some of the concerns were that led the council to remove him. What they're saying, to themselves and to other people is, what's happening here? There seems to be some unrest and some uncertainty. And my gosh, what is the city taking a new direction? Are we trying to follow a new path from where we've been on? Because we've been on a pretty good path toward trying to get some, orderly growth in the community and address some issues. And the reality is it doesn't signify anything big. It's something that that the council looked at the same way we dealt with some concerns that were raised about the police chief. But I think we need to assure them that this is not some 180 we're doing on them where we're going about face and pursuing something entirely different.
And a few of those things that you've been able to accomplish in the last few years, I told you we're not going to spend some time talking about all of this stuff as well. We've got to look forward. And this summer, you're getting ready to unveil what it might be one of the big public projects that you've had in a while, which is a complete revamp of the historic pool there in Marshfield. You're getting ready to unveil that, and you've got a lot of other great things that make Marshfield a good place to live too.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing I'm really excited to talk about. I said recently to someone on one of the WSAU TV stations, I can't wait till we start talking about the positive things again. Someone in my position doesn't want to talk about people being removed from office, whoever they might be. That's not where we want to be. We want to talk about business. We want to talk about amenities. And Van de Hey Waters is a great one, and it's going to be opening here in a couple months. People are so excited, Mike. Not only some of the issues we've been dealing with lately, but COVID-19, which people feel has kept them locked up for so long, in this pandemic. And all of a sudden, again, there's still concerns. The pandemic isn't over yet, but the idea that we're going to have a real state-of-the-art aquatic center with water slides and all these kind of things. Hefco Pool is wonderful. It did its time for 85 years, but this is going to be a facility that people are going to just get excited about. We can't wait till it opens.
So just exactly what can people or what should people expect then when they come to take in an afternoon at the pool?
Well, like I said, in the old pool, Hefco Pool is really just kind of a nice municipal pool, pretty basic. You got your pool, your diving board, those kind of things. Here they're going to find, like I said, water slides. They're going to find a concession stand, an area to kind of picnic, multiple amenities. Like I said, just it's going to be, they're going to look at it and say, wow, this is a massive step up from Hefco Pool. And, people enjoy Hefco in the summer. It's 90 degrees, but this is a place I think they probably will spend even more time. I can see people, playing in the water, going down the water slides and all these kind of things, then stepping aside, having their picnic lunch, and having some soda and whatnot from the concession stand, maybe get back in the water again. This is going to be a place where people are going to want to spend time.
No, just make sure it's a half hour after you eat though, before you
Yeah.
get back in the water, right?
You got it. You got it.
No, and no Baby Ruth bars in the pool.
We'll be on top. We'll be on top of that one.
Yes, good. Okay, just making sure. We got to cover all the bases here.
But I got to tell you, the timing couldn't be any better for this one to come online.
Yeah, exactly. Because last year you did shut down the pool. Then there was a lot of pools in central Wisconsin that were shut down. If I remember right, Wisconsin Rapids and Weston were about the only ones that did open. But you are going to be opening this brand new facility here this summer, so I guess the summer off almost fell at a perfect time for you. But do you have an idea yet of where we are going to be as far as capacity limits or things like that when this facility does open later this June and July?
Well, I know our Parks and Recreation Director, Justin Casperson, has been on top of that one, Mike. I guess I don't have the actual numbers in terms of what we'll allow with COVID. So, I mean, if we're struggling, if we're still pulling out of this and need to continue to social distance, which is very possible. I get it. We're only 10 weeks away or whatever it is, less than that. It may be with some reduced capacity. But I got to, if I can take a minute, commend our elected officials, because when Justin came to them back last May and said, you know what, COVID is going to really cause an impact on us this summer. You might want to consider closing the pool entirely and allow us to get going on the project, the new pool, so that we can be up and running when we get to next summer. And, the council was hit by people saying, oh my gosh, all these things we can't do, and restaurants are closed and all these things. And now an outdoor pool, you considering closing it for the entire summer? What are my kids going to do? We're all cooped up. But the council really grabbed onto the vision of short-term pain for long-term benefit. And they jumped right at it, in late May last year or the 1st of June, and said, let's close, get after it, get that construction season going, get the people lined up for the contract. Let's start moving forward to ensure that we can get up and running for 2021. And what they did paid off.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's a facility like this, it's not necessarily something that you make money on, but it is something that is a great service to your residents. And it is something that occasionally does create a day trip to the city of Marshfield to end up going to the pool, to maybe spend some money somewhere and then head on out and feed the kids at, well, I guess my personal favorite, Pizza Ranch or something like that. It does create a little bit of day trip tourism.
Yep, it does. It's good. And again, we have to be competitive. Economic development is very competitive. And you say, well, economic development, is that what we're talking about? This is an aquatic center. But economic development, as I tell people, because I've been around a while, is more these days than just having free land in your industrial park. It's, do people want to come here and live here? Do families want to be here? Is there employment for the spouse? Is there housing for the family? Are there things for the kids to do? That's all part of economic development. So, we need to be competing with those communities that have amenities so that people want to come here and stay here.
Then as far as economic development goes this summer, what else can we expect to see on tap in the city of Marshfield?
Well, there's been some continued quiet growth in our community, and a lot of people don't realize that. Actually, our businesses have weathered the storm fairly well. During COVID, we had a grant program for small businesses that provided them, grant money and got them through some of the hard times when they couldn't even physically be open. They weren't allowed to. You might be somebody who, to the level of a hair care provider or whatever, and that kept some of our business afloat. We don't have any real big projects coming online. We do have some new growth and some more commercial industrial activity brewing. But I think the best thing in this COVID environment, and I hear this from peers I talk to around central Wisconsin and the entire state, is that we're still standing, and that we're not reporting that 10 businesses have shut down and moved on because of this. We've come through and we're ready to move forward. So I don't have any great big announcements about new growth and development occurring at this moment to make, but the fact that we're stable after everything we've been through the last 13 months is something we're pretty proud of, that we've tried really hard working with the Chamber of Commerce and others to get people through.
One more thing then, before we let you go here, there was, and this is actually a word I just learned over the weekend watching a tourism documentary as I was going through the 15-minute waiting period for my second COVID-19 vaccination. So coming up here in about a week or so, I'm going to be looking about every doorknob in sight, just out of pure joy.
Yeah.
It's a word called brewcations. It's a vacation that you take to a certain spot, and you visit all the craft breweries there.
Oh.
Can we expect say a Med City Brewing Company within the next year or two that has the Frontline Workers Pale Ale or something like that for us to visit down and try down there in Marshfield?
That's a really appealing thought. I think one of the things we fancy ourselves in Marshfield is that we're pretty welcoming and open to entrepreneurs with new ideas. And certainly we've been involved in trying to deal with people with microbrew ideas and stuff like that. The business you're talking about is a really good, exciting, creative one. And we'd love to try and help somebody, get one like that online here in Marshfield. If I can go back a quick second, there's something I forgot to note. It's a project that started last year, but it's finishing up here right now, actually. And that's the new Hampton Inn and Suites. And, one of the things that happened here in Marshfield in 2020 that did take a hit, significantly was our hotel industry, because we have a lot of events here during the summer and other times in the year, baseball tournaments and those kind of things. And, they had to be canceled or reined in a bit, and the hotel stays were down. But a beautiful new Hampton Inn and Suites on the north end of the city, adding to what we already have in this community, really makes it exciting for when these tournaments resume and some of these activities occur here that bring people here for weekends. So I think we'll be a little bit more of a tourism hub going forward.
So then let's just tie this all in together. Find some land by the Hampton Inn and Suites. We're gonna open the Med City Brewing Company, and then the Frontline Workers Pale Ales are gonna start pouring along with maybe some Loon Stouts and trying to come up with another name here off the top of my head, but we'll find a way to make it work. We will.
Mike, you're very creative and you got yourself a good idea. I don't know if you've ever fancied yourself to be an entrepreneur. I realize that takes more than just having ideas, but if we can get pointed towards somebody who's got that kind of thought and the wherewith, we'd love to help them.
Sounds good. We'll keep our eyes peeled here. Well, Steve, we appreciate the time, and again, we'll be in touch as the situation warrants here over the next few years. We always appreciate the honesty and the feedback.
Well, thanks, Mike. I'm glad to fill in for the mayor and during this time period and provide whatever information I can on the city. And again, I would say to all your listeners that despite some of the struggles we've had the past 6 to 12 months, we're still a community that's on the move.